if a person is willing to go beyond his nature, beyond his natural instinct, to do Ratzon Hashem, then he will get the same.
Wherever you get your podcasts from, or our own website, prismoftorah.com. This is the Prism of Torah with Rebbe Aaron Prisman. This week, Parshas Vayeira, seize the moment.
Shalom to everyone. In this week's Parshas Vayeira, we all know the famous episode where Avraham Avinu is being tested by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the famous Nisayon of Akeidah Yitzchak, and he's requested to bring up Yitzchak as a sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a tefillah we say, some of us say every morning, we say Akeidah Yitzchak, and then we have a tefillah, a small prayer we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we say, Ribono shel Olam, Yeh Ratzon, that you'll remember what Avraham Avinu did, that just like he suppressed the side of his rachamim, Kmo shekavash Avraham Avinu es rachamav, from his only son, miben yechidoi, and he was willing to do an aggressive act of gevurah, which was to shecht, to sacrifice his own child in order to do your will, Hashem. So too, we're saying, so too, Hashem, please suppress your kas, your anger, your gevurah, in order to allow your rachamim to take over, and that's how you should be with us. So again, let's summarize that. Just like Avraham Avinu ensured that he will overcome his merciful side and do something that's aggressive on the gevurah side, which is a very aggressive act to sacrifice his own child, so to Hashem, we're asking Hashem to actually do the opposite. It's not so to Hashem. So to Hashem, please suppress your anger, your midah of gevurah, in order for your rachamim side to win. So really, it's a bit odd that we're equating the two, because it's not the same at all. Avraham Avinu, he ensured to push off his rachamim in order for the act of gevurah to take over, in order to do Hashem's will. And we're saying, so to Hashem, please ensure, and we're asking for the opposite, of course, that your rachamim, you'll work with us with rachamim, with your midah of rachamim, of being merciful to us, and that should overcome your gevurah side, your anger, kas. And actually this prayer is brought down, as we know, in the Gemara in Bachur, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, and we ask Hashem, and therefore we ask you, Hashem, that you will deal with us lifnim mishuras hadin, not the din, but with beyond the letter of the law. So the question is, why is this one-to-one? It sounds like it is. As we already mentioned last week, there's this idea of midah keneged midah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu works with us the same way that we work with him. And if a person is willing to go beyond his nature, beyond his initial natural instinct, to do Ratzon Hashem, then he will get the same back from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means he would also be able to live in this world beyond the regular natural limitations. Avraham Avinu did that, as we explained last week, and therefore that's exactly what we're asking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just like Avraham Avinu worked on himself to do your will, Hashem, and he was able to overcome his natural midah, which we know his natural midah is of rachamim, chesed, he's amuda chesed, and he was able to overcome that and do an aggressive act of shechting his own son. So to Hashem, overcome what's a more natural mahalach that Hashem works with everyone, just like every king would work with everyone. Din is whatever you deserve to get, you get. If you did an Vayeira, you deserve to get punished. So we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please work against the regular process, the regular mahalach, where if a person sins, he deserves to get a punishment. Please overcome that and give us rachamim and deal with us lifnim mishuras hadin. This idea that it's very important and intrinsic to try to work and do Ratzon Hashem, despite that sometimes it entails for us to go against our natural tendencies, the midah that we're used to, like Avraham was used to chesed, and all his nisyonis were in gevurah, like kicking out Ishmael, and the Akeidah Sitzchok. Also, we find a similar thing with Yaakov Avinu. As we know, Yaakov represents emes, and yet there were several nisyonis that Yaakov had, that he had to do something that seems to be a bit contradictory to emes, which was the idea of he had to use mirma. Mirma is like with his wisdom, but he has to be a bit trickery, because that was Ratzon Hashem, and it was very hard for him because his midah is emes. That's when he had to pretend he was his brother Esav, and we saw he was only able to do that and realized it was Ratzon Hashem because his mother told him, and Chazal tell us it was really Ruach HaKodesh telling him to do that. So he did that, and even by doing that, he tried to stick as much as possible to say something out of his mouth that was emes, and therefore we know Rashi tells us, he says, Anoichi, yeah, it's me here, comma, Esav bechorecha, meaning it's me. He made him think that he's saying, yeah, I am Esav, your oldest son. But no, he said, it's me, comma, and Esav is your oldest. Esav bechorecha. Al kol panim, he also had to do the same thing with Lavan. He had to work with him b'mirma. He had his whole trickery way of ensuring that that Lavan won't steal from him, etc., etc. But the concept we're trying to bring about is that a person should do his best, even if he has to work. Or not even, dafka, that's the most important thing, that you work on yourself to overcome your natural, regular boundaries, to do Ratzon Hashem. That's true Yirat Hashem, and someone that really tries to strive to get closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu. This idea is also mentioned by Rav Volven Alei Shul, as he quotes Rav Tzadok HaKohen, and he says is one of the big Talmidei Chachamim, one of the Gdoilim in Torah Sanista, and he says that how does a person know which area he has to really work on? So he says that he can know that through what his natural instinct is telling him. If his instinct is telling him, oh, it's really hard for me to do this mitzvah, then dafka on that mitzvah you have to work the hardest, because that is one of your main purposes in life, to do a tikkun for your neshama with that mitzvah. And also, that's in Aseh Tov. Also, in the realm of Sur Merah, stay away from Aveiras. If there's one Aveira that's really, really very hard for you, you should always ensure to extremely work hard on that Aveira, that you'll be very far away from performing that sin. Because that's really why you're here in this world. That's a tikkun for you. And it could, Adkan, Rav Tzadok HaKohen. Some people may ask, what do you mean? So everyone has a different tikkun. How can it be that in many generations, such as ours, we see that a lot of people have a similar midah they have to work on? So that we can easily answer, it's not even a question, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated that in our generation, we'll have all these people that have to work on these midas. It reminds me of a famous story of the Chazon Ish, that someone came up to him and said, Baruch Hashem, I wasn't on this plane. There was major issues with the plane. Something went wrong and many people died. So I just wanted to share this with the Chazon Ish and tell you that I'm so thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Chazon Ish answered him in one sentence, planes don't die, people die. What the Chazon Ish meant to say is that, what are you getting all excited? All these people were meant to die. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated, they'll all go on this plane because that's what was going to happen. And he said quite the contrary. If you would have been on that plane, then no one would have died, because it wasn't meant to happen. It wasn't your time to go, so you could have saved everyone. So you can't look at it that way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrates that everyone will be in the same place because of whatever it is Hashem is orchestrating. So in many generations, it's true that many people have to work on the same things, and that's why dafka they were put together in the same generation. Rav Tzadok HaKohen also brings down from Vayeira Rabbo it says that whichever part of your body used for sin, it's dafka with that part of the body, you should also do a mitzvah to counter the Avraham that was done. So he said, aside from the idea of midah keneged midah, there's a deeper idea over here, and that is the fact that you were able to get yourself to do a sin with that part of the body. That's the strongest indication that dafka with that part of your body, you have to do a mitzvah. And that will mitaken your nefesh. And a person that really works on these areas that he feels he's very vulnerable to, that's exactly his purpose in this world, and it's going to help him do a tikkun to his neshama and get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We also know the famous Chazal, that the person that was willing to work on himself and be oiver al midoisav, even though he has this natural instinct to act a certain way that's not right, and he stops himself from acting that way, Chazal tell us he gets unbelievable sachar. According to what we're saying, it's perfect, because we're saying a person that goes beyond his natural capabilities and works on himself to go above nature, above his nature, above his nitiyas, then so too midah keneged midah, Kadosh Baruch Hu will also go above boundaries and give him all kinds of things that are beyond nature. There are also many chazals about a person that gets embarrassed and doesn't act and doesn't do anything back. That also is a very special time, as man mesugal, that they can ask for a special request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why is that? Because once again, at that moment, it's everyone's natural instinct. When someone hurts you, you want to get him back, you want to say something. But a person that gets embarrassed, especially in public, and is willing to put his head down and not do anything in order, with the kavanah, of course, to do Ratzon Hashem, that's an Eis Ratzon. That's a very special time for him that is able to tap into that moment and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for also things that are maybe above Teva. I would just like to end with a story that I think brings this point that we're trying to make, brings this point home, and that is those shiurim I went to for a couple of years to Rav Vayeira, who's very close with Rav David Abuchatzera, and he said that for several years in his life he was a rebbe in yeshiva for very modern bachurim, that it was hard for them to go in the regular system, so they were a lot more open over there and easygoing, for the lack of a better term. And one morning, one specific bachur came up to him and said, "Slicha, Rav, it's very hard for me to daven today. I don't want to daven. I don't want to put tefillin on today." So Rav Vayeira was kind of shocked, but not really, because he knew who these bachurim were. But he said, what am I supposed to tell them? I can't tell him he doesn't need to put tefillin on. On the other hand, I can't force him either. It's not going to do anything. So he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me an idea. And I said to him the following: listen, if you're saying you can't, you can't. What can I do about it? So don't. But I'm just telling you one thing. If you are willing to, right now, daven with kavanah to Hashem and put tefillin on, and you'll be willing to do me a big favor and daven for me. There's special places, as we know in Shmoneh Esrei, a person can add his own private prayers. If you daven for me, I'll give you a certain thing, whatever it was, 100 shekels. So the bachur says, what do you mean? Why would you do that? So Rav Vayeira says, I can tell that your davening, especially this morning, will be something unbelievable that will reach mamish HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kisei hakavod. It will be bokeh rekim and get to kisei hakavod. So the bachur says, come on, you know me, Rebbe. My tefillah will barely go through the roof over here. That's it. Maybe. Won't even get to the roof. So Rav Vayeira said to him, let me explain to you. Let me explain to you something. We all know that there's something called an Eis Ratzon, a special time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have more of a chance to tap into HaKadosh Baruch Hu and ask for certain things. We know there's Eis Ratzon during Shabbos, which is once a week, especially in Mincha of Shabbos, for those who know this stuff. And then there's also an Eis Ratzon during the Chagim, etc., etc. But that's a general Eis Ratzon for everyone. There's also an Eis Ratzon for each individual at different times during the year. When is this Eis Ratzon, a special time that we can connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu more? We don't really know. But there's someone out there that does know. And that's the Yetzer Hara. So whenever you feel that you have an urge not to do a mitzvah, then you know dafka now if you do the mitzvah, that's your Eis Ratzon. And that's dafka why the Yetzer Hara is fighting so hard that you won't do it. So if you're telling me it's so hard for you to daven out to Hashem, it must be, and it must mean that this is a gilui, that right now is a very big Eis Ratzon for you. So please have me in mind. I'll tell you the specific request I have that you'll send over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for me. So please do so. Needless to say, it was very mashpia on the bachur, and he davened, and since then I think he always davened because he did it he realized how important it is for him to daven, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we see from the story the same idea, that because he had an etiyah, especially at that time, not to daven, that's dafka when you have to fight the Yetzer Hara even more. Because the Yetzer Hara knows that if you do that thing, that's going to be your tikkun. That's going to be a way you get closer to Hashem. And that's, for those of you who know this term, the money ball, that you can really be mashpia on and upgrade your kesher with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yiratzon, that will always be able to pick up on those times and be able to fight off the Yetzer Hara and dafka use our Yetzer Hara to elevate our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, just like Avraham Avinu did. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Prism of Torah. Visit our website, prismoftorah.com, where you'll find a full archive of hundreds of past Divrei Torah. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all of our episodes. Thank you, Yonavefa, for your recording equipment. Produced by Eli Podcast Productions.